Hello explorers and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to continue with installing Linux. And we have actually installed all the packages, so now we are going into configuration. So let's jump over here and look at the first step. First off, we need to unpackage some configuration files that comes with Linux from scratch. This is LFS boot scripts. So if we go into this directory here, there is a make install for this. And that will install a lot of different scripts for different run levels. So all these scripts here are for different run levels. You also have some scripts to start and stop services that will be installed, and some scripts to get your network up and down in your system. So that's the kind of things that is in this package. So it's some scripts that will help your system to start up and boot different subsystems. So we will not look into these specific scripts. They are installed and ready for use. Next up, we're going to configure some things in our etc, the configuration file system for the configuration directory for our file system. So let's go over to etc here, and in the sys configuration directory, there should be a new file that is the same file as our network connection. So let's look here. We have something that is called ifconfig that will show you what kind of devices you have for network. I have one set up here. This is a virtual box. So the first one here is set up as a network for the internet, and it actually doesn't have any IP at the moment. And then we have another one here that is set up for my local network so I can connect to it. And let's go and create these files. They should be called ifconfig dot and the interface name. So let's start with the little bit more complicated one. This interface for my local network. We will configure that. I will copy some of this configuration information from the instructions here. And as you see, our VI that we are using now is actually working correctly for pasting in things, moving up and down, and so on. And that was the configuration we did when we installed the Vim package. So if you haven't seen that, go back and look at that. Then we need to change this up to P0S8, I believe it was. It should be a boot. Let's check that out. Yeah, I remembered correctly. Yeah, and here we need to use the IP address that we had. So let's put that in. So that's 192.168.99. So 99 is my subnet. And then 113. It should have the gateway of 1, and it should have the broadcast of 255. So this prefix here is actually the net mask and will tell you how many bits of your address should be your network. So for instance, if we have 8 bits in our network, 8 bits is 1 byte, so that's a value from 0 to 255. So for the first byte here, if we have a network with a broadcast address of 10, 255, 255, 255, that is the broadcast address for this A network, where you have a lot of, some million addresses. And that is a really large network. Most people don't have that, but as a local network, you can use this 10 address and it's totally open, so you can use all of those addresses. They will not be routed on the internet. And then if you go out to 16 bits, then we will use the first 2. So that's the easy way to think of that. And if we go up to 64, so that's 8 times 3, then we will use a network where the 3 first digits here is the network and then you have all the hosts within that network. So if I send out a signal on the network, all the hosts in my network will hear that transaction, and you will be routed over to the correct computer. And usually you also have a gateway where you go to in order to get out from your network. So if I want to talk to a computer that is not on my same network, I need to go to the gateway. So the gateway is out. If I want to talk to all the computers, I send something to 255, and then I can go to specific computers on the network. So that's how you think about this prefix or the netmask address. So that was our first script. I will copy that up to use the same for this other network, but I will configure it a little bit differently. I will not set an IP address or anything like that, and we will change the interface here to 3, and I will set this to service DHCP. So that's a service called I had it Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. So that's something I don't put on in my memory, but it's actually some service that will go out on my broadcast address, and that's on UDP usually, will ask the network, what's my IP and how can I get out from here? So this is a service where you ask the network, can I get an address? Can I get a way to talk to you? And that's what we set up for this internet service. So it will go to, in this case, my local computer or my network router and see if I can get an address for talking to the outside world. So that was our network device configuration. Let's go on. We need to set up some domain servers. And we do that by adding a resolve file, resolve.conf in the etc directory. And this file will have some configuration for our domain. So we need to have a domain name. We need to have domain servers. And these are used to get the IP addresses of different computers. So if you go to google.com, for instance, that will actually have an IP address. But you need to talk to a name server in order to get that IP address. I usually use domain er.org, and I will use Google's name servers. You may use whatever name servers that you know. These are so easy because they are 8 quads and then 8844. So I will remember those, and they are also mentioned in the guide. So those are public DNS servers. They work. Then we need a host file or host name file. And there we can type whatever we like this computer to be named on the network. And I like Tolkien, so I will use Baron, which is one of the characters in Lord of the Rings. So now we have a computer host name. Next up, we need to configure our hosts file. So hosts, and let's put some configuration in the host file as well. And here you can put in things for your local network and other computers in your area. So for instance, we can put in our own IP address here. And let's say that that's Baron. And you can give it multiple names. So we can have baroneia.org, for instance. And that we don't want. Local host is always good to have at 227.0.0.1 because that's the local IP address anyway. So the next thing I want to set up is my gateway, and I will give that a name, and I actually call this computer gamer. So let's ping gamer. So now I ping the host computer, and then I can ping Baron, that's my local computer. So now I know that the network can actually talk with the different systems. And next up, we need to set up an init tab. And this is a controller that is run for your different run levels in your system. And we will go into what run levels are and what the different things are actually called. Because there is 7 different run levels in your system. And first off, you say the first thing here before the colon is an ID for this line. And this is just called ID for some reason. And then you have init default. And that action will actually look at the run level that you have as the second argument here. And that is your default run level. So when the computer starts, it will go from 0, 1, 2, and then end up in 3. And the run level 3 will be the default for the booted system. And then you have this SI, and this is sysinit. So this will configure all the devices and so on and put your system up. So that is required. Then you have this 0. So when you are in the 0 run level, and that is actually halt. So the system is halted there until it actually starts up. And then we have, this is in the sysinit and in run level 1. Then you will run the scripts in RC1. And then you have the scripts in RC2. And then 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. And you usually say that 1 is single user root. So if you go into run level 1, you are root in the system, you are one user, and this is a run level you go into usually when you do maintenance and when you are fixing issues in the system. For instance, if you have a hard drive that is faulty, you can go to run level 1, so no other processes are running, and you can fix your hard drive before you actually boot your computer. Then you have run level 2 and 3, and those are usually text-driven interfaces. So you will get a bunch of different consoles that you can go into and run different programs. And in a server environment, that's totally fine to be in run level 3, for instance. Everything is booted up and you only have text consoles, can log in with SSH and so on, but you don't have any GUI, you don't have any graphical interface with windows that you can move around and so on. Those are usually in run level 4 and 5. So if you go up to init level 5 and you have installed an X system with some window manager and so on, then you can bring up this graphical interface. And then you have 6, which is the run level where you shut down the computer. And from run level 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, you can go into the action Control Alt Delete. And this will actually tell the system to shut down, restart now. And what these are doing, I guess that it will wait for a little while or something. I'm not really sure what these are. If it's doing it in a timely manner, if it's not killing things that are running or something. And I didn't actually mention what wait was. Wait means that it will run things in that run level and wait until it's done, and then go on to the next. And then we have this su login, and that will be run once in single user 0, 1, and 6. And that's so you can log in as a root user. And last but not least, you have in run level 2, 3, 4, and 5, so those where you actually are in the system, more or less, you will get 6 different TTYs, and those are terminals. So these you will reach by using your Alt, F1, F2, and so on, and you can actually go into these different interfaces and control your system, log in and do all the things that you want. And those are run under action called respawn, which means if one of them actually crashes or if they are stopped, they will respawn and come up again. So when you're logging out from the console, it actually stops that program and then goes back to the login screen. So that's our init tab. Next up, we need to configure the clock. And that's in sysconfig clock. And here we need to put in a little bit of configuration. It's mostly to say that I want to use UTC as my clock. You can put in any other time zone that you want to run on your system, but I'm running on UTC, and I hope that everyone will run in UTC without any summertime and wintertime, because I'm fed up with those. Different time zones are okay, but winter time and summertime, I don't really understand the reason anymore. Let's see. Next up, we have sysconfig console. And here we need to get our Keymap. So they have a lot of different configurations here, and I will take one here for German. It will probably work well with my keyboard as well. I have a Swedish keyboard, so I will change this to SE Latin. It's only 3 keys that is different, so yeah. And then you have some correction for some euro symbol. You say that you want to use Unicode characters in your system, so that's the full Unicode table with all the different letters that you need. And I'm not really sure what this first here for font lat, maybe that's Lato 1 to 16, and then they're using the character table 8859-15, which is a European character table, so that's a good one. I'm not really sure what the font here is, but I guess it's installed in the system, so why not use it? And now we have configured our console, so we will get good key bindings and so on, so we can use that. We can go in and update a file called rc site, and that's also in the sysconfig. And here is a lot of different configuration options. You could optionally add this sysk logd param, and that will remove a timestamp from your sys logging output. I'm not going to do that. It looks like you can actually add UTC here for clock and also the console settings down here. So I'm not really sure why they have different setup for RC site and why you have these different scripts, but I will leave this as is and don't do any changes in that file. So that's for boot scripts I read, and it's more for the system. So we leave it as is. And next up, we need to set a locale. So by running the command locale-a, you will see all the locales I have in the system. I don't want to output anything else than the actual output. So I could go for C, UTF-8 or POSIX. So then I will get the system native output. Or I go with English, US for instance, and I will probably get error messages in English that I can Google later if I have any problems. If I, on the other hand, choose a locale like Swedish, well, I get Swedish error messages. Problem is, no one on the internet will post any error messages in Swedish, so I will not be able to Google for help. If you want to read your error messages and understand them in your native languages, then you can change this to have a locale in your native language. I'm not going to do that. I will use English. So we need to create something called a profile here. And in profile, I need to export lang and then add this little locale. So that's the only thing I will export in my profile. Here you can set up other environment variables that you are required to have in your system. So profile is for adding environment variables for the system. Next up, we are going to add an input RC. So run script for inputs. And I will just copy this over. I'm not sure if I need this configuration as is or if I need to change it in any way. There are some configurations options in this script that are a little bit interesting. So we'll look at those. There are a lot of different here. So you have some configuration for Xterm, which could be nice. You have some for console, which I'm not using. You have for the Linux console. So you pretty much set up configurations what different modification keys should be. But this one here, horizontal scroll mode off. And that means the text will wrap to the next line instead of having an endless line where you need to scroll horizontally, and that's not something I want to do. So that's the most interesting. Then you have also bell style. Here I have set none. You can have visual or audible if you, for instance, want help when you are pressing a key that is not accepted or when the input is not working. Then you might want a visual output so you know that something, that command have been done but didn't execute it correctly. Or perhaps you need an audible feedback so you know when you have actually been able to do what you like. Some people require audible, some people need visual. I'm fine with not having any of those bells. So let's go on. We have a script called shells, which tells the system what is the shells that are acceptable in the system for my users. And I will just copy and paste in the basics here, sh and bash. I'll usually use bash, but if you have any other shell that you want to run, just install it and add it here, and it will be available for the users of the system. So now we have configured our Linux system. Next up, we are going to make it bootable, but I will stop here. And I hope that you learned something today. I hope that you found this video interesting. If you have any comments or suggestions, leave them down in the comment section down below. If you like this video, give it a like, share it with your friends and colleagues. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. And I really hope to see you in the next video.